Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Opie-Verse. I am always Opie-One, the one and only. Sadly, tonight, for the first time, it pains me to see it, we don't have Brixton with us. If you missed last week, he's no longer part of the stream. He's with us in spirit. He may be watching. If you're watching Brixton, let us know. We miss you already. It just feels weird not introducing you. But as they say in the biz, the show must go on. And tonight, I'm so hyped to have this guest on. When I thought about the Opie-Verse and getting it all set up, tonight's guest was one of the reasons for it. It's somebody who I followed from very early in my time on TikTok. And if you look now, he looks like he was the first person I ever followed. There were people before that, but I unfollowed them and stuck with our guest tonight. But without any further ado, I will introduce you. You may know him as Jedi Connor. You may know him as Connor Fahie, but we'll just call him Connor because he's here tonight. So,
thank you for having me.
It is an honor and a pleasure, my friend. It's an honor and a pleasure. How are you, man?
I'm doing really well. I just got done an internship, so now I have some more time on my hands to focus on content, and I'm super excited to see Star Wars in general in the future.
I mean, has there ever been a better time to be a Star Wars fan than right now? These kids just don't know, Connor. The kids don't know.
They don't know about the huge gap. They don't know.
Oh, I mean, even you, like for you, and we'll go into this, but like even you don't know. Like what way? I grew up and Star Wars was done when I was born, and it was a long wait. But yeah, tonight's going to be fun. It's just the two of us. We'll get stuck in. Before we do get stuck into it, just a general kind of reference and warning to everyone. This is a more kind of adult theme stream, not intentionally, but what that means is we're going to be a little bit more relaxed. My guest and I are both 18 and over. So, things might just be a little, like the odd swear word might slip out. I don't think there'll be any public nudity, but I do give that warning anyway. Connor, I know it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon for you, so you may not have started yet, but I'm on the Guinness, so there is the consumption of alcohol as well. But what are you drinking tonight?
I'm just drinking some water. Living Sport water bottle is the company I had my internship for. Last night I'm still recovering from a night out last night, so we're staying hydrated.
That's the tip, kids. Stay hydrated. That is the key to recovery and avoiding hangovers. And but never avoid a hangover by not going out. It's totally worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. It's an honor to have you. So I think so much to talk about. As I see, I've followed you kind of for well over a year now. I do think between you and kind of Choco, I think if I hadn't kind of found you, I probably wouldn't be here myself now. Like my wife got me onto TikTok, and we just kind of saw all the standard dances and all of that were kind of going around early last year, kind of when COVID kicked off and everything hyped up. I found you, I found Darth Choco, found Element 7. And then I was like, right, okay, like now we're talking.
Right.
And then that kind of heightened my want and need to collect Lego, which then like really kind of hyped up my collection. And then obviously all of this came as well. But that's all about me. But you're massively, pushing 100K on TikTok now. How did your journey start? Like, how did you find yourself here?
Yeah, so I kind of have a similar story. I got on TikTok in like December of 2019, and I didn't know Mark Cooley, my best friend, love him. But yeah, I got TikTok because it's the thing. Everybody had it, and it was all hype, and I was like, okay, I'll download it. And then I started to see like couple like Star Wars videos, and I was like, okay, I didn't know this was a thing. And then when I got on, it was like the time where everybody had like a Lego Star Wars like profile picture.
Yeah,
everyone had it. It was like a whole like the people with millions of followers had Lego Star Wars, and I was like, okay. And then I saw Element 7 was the first person that I really saw, and also I forget the other person's name, but also I saw Element and Darth Choco were the ones that really kind of got me inspired to make content. I've always been a fan of Star Wars Theory, so he kind of pushed me to like I watch his videos and I kind of was inspired by him to start create videos. And I was like, I've seen all these videos. I could do that too. Like I love Star Wars, and making videos heightened my love for Star Wars more and kind of hungry for knowledge. So I started posting once a day, and then twice a day, and then 3 times a day at one point during quarantine. And you just put your head down and grind, and good things started to happen. People started to interact with the videos and wanted to know what I thought, which was kind of absolutely insane, because who would have thought that someone wants to know my opinion on Star Wars? So it's a really cool thing. TikTok has a great Star Wars community.
It does. Overall, it does. Obviously, there are some kind of bad eggs out there and all of that. But I feel like it's more pleasant. We'll probably see the same with like Lego Star Wars as well. Obviously, Lego YouTube is quite heated at times because I think it's more established, whereas kind of Lego Star Wars and even Star Wars TikTok are still very much in their infancy. Right. I must say though, you're brave. Like I toyed with doing the whole Star Wars thing just for like a nanosecond, and I was like, nah. I see those comments, and as nice as it all is, there's always someone either trying to trip you up or, you know, their opinions trump your facts and all of that. So
right. That's a big problem when you're because I'm mostly like facts. I give my opinions and stuff, but a lot of my videos are just like canon lore, and then people think that it's an opinion and they start to project their own opinions and like incorrect facts. And I'm just like, no, this is what's true. It's not your opinion. It's not my opinion. It's just what's true. Oh, my brother. Love you, bro. But yeah, the comments can get rough sometimes. I've had a couple of videos where it's just like people dogging on me, and you kind of have to step away for a little bit. But I mean, if you think about it, the comments are pushing more views. So there's always a little silver lining.
Yeah, exactly. It does help. And I think once you can acknowledge it and how TikTok works, like I play to it in the Lego world. Things like you put a lightsaber on the wrong way, you know, the hilt in the wrong way, and people are like, my God, what have you done? You call like one of the clones by the wrong name, and it gets heated up. So people like don't realize all the time, but I always put like a little kind of accidental mistake, like on purpose, into my videos, and just see kind of who picks up on them. And people don't always pick up on them, but they are fun when they happen. But yeah, you're certainly a braver man than I am, but you do a great job of it. I think my question in that respect is, which comes first? So did your knowledge of Star Wars lore drive the content, or did the content really drive your knowledge of Star Wars lore?
Right. So my journey with Star Wars is I loved it when I was a kid, like super young. I played like the original Lego Star Wars games, bricks in. But I played like the original Lego Star Wars games. I love that. The Revenge of the Sith video game for like PS2. Me and my brother would always duel each other in that. And then we had like those lightsabers that you would flick out. And it was like a really big part of my life in my childhood. And I've always been a fan. But then like when I got to like high school and like middle school and high school, I kind of took a break from it. There wasn't that much going on. And then in high school, The Force Awakens came out. I still wasn't I still wasn't super deep into it. I didn't see it in theaters. And then once I got to college, my roommate, Johnny, was a huge Star Wars fan, and it kind of ignited my love for like Star Wars lore again. So I was deep diving Star Wars theories videos, and that's how I got most of my knowledge. And then when I got to TikTok, I was just kind of talking about things that I knew. Not trying to step out of my lane. And then once people started to respond, you kind of get more hungry for more knowledge. And then I have to shout out Dark Chaco because he got me into like the Star Wars novels and audiobooks. He's like, dude, listen to these, and these. And there's so many good stories. And I would say that Star Wars is at its best in long form books. It's just, there's so many more details, flesh out the story. But I would say I love Star Wars. I started to make content about stuff that I loved, and then and like new, and then I would push the boundaries and start to learn more so I could answer more questions.
Nice. I totally agree. I haven't taken the plunge yet in the audiobooks, and I I do enjoy the books, but they're like the longer books. I struggle. Like it takes me quite a while to get through them, and I always forget that I'm reading them. And I should take them plunges into the audiobooks. And I'm going away in a couple of weeks, and I'm away for like over a week. Perfect, like beach
Yeah.
holiday. Put the AirPods in, just sit and kind of chill. So I'm sure we'll come to that. I'll get some recommendations from you. But
Oh,
those
absolutely.
are
Yeah.
like those and comic books. I think the comic books, because they're quite snappy, are really good. You can kind of finish a comic book in 15 minutes if you really need to, and kind of get through it. And then those with an audiobook are pretty cool. So the Force Awakens, I think, yeah, I feel like everybody felt like that. Everybody was just like, yeah, that was all right. Like, well,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the rest of it. Now I know, and we have discussed this in comments, but I know you're a big fan of The Last Jedi, and
Yes.
fully coincidental, this is episode 8 of
Perfect.
it. It's almost like it was the will of the Force, some might say. But
Exactly.
did you always have that kind of love and feelings for it, or is it something you had to invest time in? Did you have to? Because what I find I struggle with the sequels is Resistance isn't the Clone Wars, and I know if he's here, Raven Bricks will be like, you've got to watch Resistance. You've got to watch Resistance. It really helps. And there's not as much kind of canon material around it, but what was kind of your love story with The Last Jedi? Where did it start, and kind of where is it now?
Yeah, so it's actually like kind of a roller coaster with that movie. So I saw it in theaters with my friend Mark, who's in the chat, and I loved it. I remember tweeting like, I love Star Wars, like it kind of like reignited my love. And then I saw like Star Wars YouTube, and everybody hated it, and like all they were talking about were like all the negatives and just like misinformed videos, and I consumed all of those. And then I got into the feeling of like, oh, this movie's trash. Like everything's bad with it. I started to trash The Last Jedi. And then once I got on Star Wars TikTok, specifically with like Element and Chaco, they like explain the movie, and I'm like, okay, I see it now. And that is why I loved it in the beginning. And I just kind of got clouded by the negativity. And once you start to like learn and like kind of just take a step back and, for me at least, see what the movie was trying to say and what Rian Johnson did with the characters, it's like a really good movie for me. I love the story.
Yeah, it's on that point. The first point there is I totally agree, and I think certainly when you're younger, it's so easy to kind of follow the crowd on films and on anything really. It happens in the Lego world. People release stuff, like Lego will release something, and like that's not what I wanted. Like don't judge it off what you wanted. Judge it for what it is, and actually make your own mind up. Don't kind of let your thoughts be because that person said, and just because that person has 100,000, 200, 100 million followers, it doesn't mean their opinion's right. And
Exactly.
opinions kind of like it is like make your own opinion. So yeah, and I think like I've been on a bit of a journey with The Last Jedi, and your content and Choco's and Elements like really encouraged me to kind of say, okay, go back, revisit it, and give it another go. But yeah, I still feel it has faults personally, but
yeah.
Do you know, at the same time, like I'm an original trilogy guy, like absolutely. I'm not a big fan of the prequels. Like I'm just like, nah, they're like, because I still remember them being 14, 17 and 20. Yeah, 14, 17 and 20 when they all came out, and like they just didn't live up to their expectations. But again, that was me.
Yeah. For me, that is like my childhood. I was born in 1999, so like I didn't see Revenge of the Sith in theaters because I wasn't allowed to because it was rated PG-13. But I played all those video games and just like the pod racing games and Lego Star Wars and all those. Like that's like my favorite era. But like when I go back and watch the movies, they're a lot weaker than the original trilogy. So I would say for me, my favorite trilogy is the original trilogy, but my favorite era and like would be the prequels, just because so much world building that goes on in those movies, and the Clone Wars and the books and everything. That's a really cool time.
Do you know, that's a really good way of looking at it? And I think, yeah, the Clone Wars era or the prequel era is so much better than the prequel films. And the Clone Wars did a lot. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when they kind of judge the sequels against the prequels. It's like the prequels are so good because of the Clone Wars series. Like they did a lot to kind of really tell the rest of the rounded story. And it comes to what you're saying about like audiobooks, like you need that additional, like a film can only tell you so much. And we see that now where studios are putting out a lot more series rather than films because you can do that. But yeah, even as an original trilogy fan, I do think, in my opinion, The Last Jedi is Luke's best story. Like I think it's his best film. And like I love kind of his arc through that.
And Mark Hamill kills it. He acted so well in that movie.
Yeah, like it's so well that you couldn't actually figure out what was going on the first time I've seen it. It's a bit like when you first see The Matrix and you're like, what? Like what was that? Like what? I don't understand what happened. And I think that's the problem, isn't it? A lot of people judge it almost by kind of like at face value, but sometimes you have to invest yourself in it a lot more. But then we had Rise of Skywalker. What's your thoughts on that one?
So I was really disappointed with that movie when I watched it in theaters, and it's still at the bottom of my list. It's complicated because they received so much hate from everybody in the community from The Last Jedi that it's really hard to follow. And I think what they did was played it a little bit safe. They brought Palpatine back. I don't have a problem with that because that's he's been in a bunch of different stories and legends and stuff. Like that's something that was kind of foretold, especially with like the Aftermath books that were released like after the Force Awakens. They kept hinting at like Palpatine's doing something, but it's just the movie didn't hit for me. It seemed like there was a lot going on. It's kind of hard to follow, and it's just tough for me because I really love The Last Jedi, and I feel like if they kind of went a little more forward with like Kylo being the villain, and I would say it's my least favorite movie. I still enjoy it. Like it's Star Wars movies are great, but I think it's the weakest out of them all.
Do you know, it's a really good point. And I feel this is where people get triggered unnecessarily. And I said this when I was on Choco's podcast, which was a prize moment for me. But even though I would rate Rise of Skywalker at the bottom, I'd still rather watch that than like The Notebook. Like it's still like a 6.5 out of 10 film for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean I hate it. It's just it's the least the kind of the film I'd go to last. But if it was on like a Sunday afternoon, you're a little bit hungover, you're hydrating, you're on the sofa, and it comes on the TV, I'd watch it.
I'd watch it, yeah.
And
I think that is the problem with like tier lists and rankings and all of these different things that people argue over. It's like, I don't hate this movie. It's just lower than the rest of the movies because the other ones are so good. It's something that people, I think, get confused on.
So less about the bottom. What do you put up the top? What are like your top three?
Yeah, top three is 1, Empire Strikes Back. 2 is, I'd say Revenge of the Sith would be 2, and then 3 is The Last Jedi. They all switch depending on the day, how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
But those are my top 3. Empire is just a masterpiece. It's so good.
It is. But I totally agree with you as well that it goes by mood. And I can't remember who we were talking to, but I think it was Henry, who I know who was kind of our second guest on here. He's basically like the British you.
Yeah, I love Henry. He's my guy.
He's a great guy. But with Empire, sometimes you're just not in the mood for Empire. Like you
Yeah.
have to be like, right, today's the day I need Empire. But like for me, A New Hope, you can put A New Hope on whenever. Like,
Yeah.
can't get to sleep, put A New Hope on. Feeling a bit low, put A New Hope on. Like it's one of them that it's so easy to watch. So
It's a feel good comfort movie. Like you can't go wrong with it.
It's got so much Tatooine as well, which I love. So
Yeah.
it's what about the how do you feel about like Rogue One and Solo?
I actually really love Rogue One and Solo. They kind of get jumbled up in the middle just because like my top three are like those are my top three, and then the rest are kind of similar. They interchange, but I think they did a really good job with Rogue One, and especially Solo too. Solo is just like a heist movie. Does like you could just throw it on and someone would be like, it's super exciting because it's just ice. You don't even have to have any idea what's going on. It's just a fun movie.
Well, people always say, don't they? It's a great film, but it's not a great Star Wars film. You're like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. It's like
it's Han Solo, and all it means is there's no lightsabers and there's no Force use.
Right.
But then at the same time, when you do all the lightsaber and the Force use, people are like, come on, it's a big universe. Let's get more of something else.
The thing with Star Wars is that they could make almost any movie. The universe is so expansive. We could have like a political drama. We could have like a romance. Like it doesn't matter. I wish they would like step out of their comfort zone and do like almost like a House of Cards style like Star Wars show in like the height of the Senate in the prequels. Like that would be such a political thriller. Like I think they should do that, but
100%. I'm all for it. So from the prequels, The Phantom Menace is my favorite film, but I love it because, and this is why Palpatine is like my favorite Sith too, because it's almost like he didn't have to use these kind of extrovert powers to capture power. He captured power through politics and playing both sides.
Yeah.
You know, that was just sheer intelligence and working of the system. And it's so reflective of kind of everything we've seen, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, and regardless of if you're in the US, if you're in the UK, with like Brexit and all that, like it's all kind of the inner workings, and as you say, a bit of a House of Cards scenario. And it's give me that anytime.
That's the thing. Everybody kind of craps on the fact that like the prequels have a bunch of politics, and as I get older, I'm like, give me the politics. I want to have a discussion about like the banking clan, like what are they doing to jack up price? You know, it's just there's something in Star Wars for everyone and every single level. If you want to see cool sword fights, it's there. If you want to see like politics, it's there. It's everything is there for some. Like you can always find something, a deeper meaning, a lesson in life. Like it's just a really cool universe in that way that it has something for everybody.
A Star Wars sitcom,
based around just have a
Jar Jar Binks, like in the Empire Age, coming home to his Coruscant bedsit, and then between like his hours of begging and street performing for money to like Mrs. Jar Jar, I'd watch that.
Exactly. Just have a bunch of people doing nothing in the Star Wars universe. It would be a good show.
Precisely. Moving outside of all that, though, to your point, thinking of like, I know you've been reading the High Republic books. And then we've got the announcement of Knights of the Old Republic remake. How much of that have you had exposure to? Kind of what's your thoughts on it? What are your recommendations on that? Because people were asking as well, like what is Knights of the Old Republic? Like who do we expect to see in there? And who are they and what's their story? I feel like you're the guy for that.
So I actually have a confession to make, but I have never played Knights of the Old Republic. When I was a kid, I don't know, I didn't really have the opportunity to play it. And I know there's a bunch of books with like Revan and stuff, but it's just, to me, I never really dove deep into that. I'm more focused on canon, but I heard it's basically going to be like a remake of the game. It's not going to be canon. But I heard it's a really good story, and I can't really speak to it because I haven't played it, but I know there's a huge community. There's been a community for like 20 years on this game. So if I'm going to play it when it comes out, if it ever comes out on PC, but
I think they've confirmed, haven't they, that it will come out on PC and Xbox. It will just be delayed. but yeah, I remember playing it briefly, and it felt very grown up. And I was like, nah, I'm not going there. Like, no chance whatsoever. But yeah, it's a funny one that it's not going to be canon, because it feels like everything that they do Star Wars now is canon game wise. Like, it's all part of the broader narrative. And we know Revan is canon now, but
Yep.
only because of the Rise of Skywalker. But
Yeah.
it feels like that would have been a great opportunity to have toyed with that character and like start to show us more.
Yeah, I think they could have done a lot in the sequels, just kind of referencing other things. But I mean, again, they needed to do their own story, so it couldn't just be like name drop here, name drop here, name drop here. But I think they could have did something. They put it in the visual dictionary, so like not a lot of people would be exposed to that, except for like the hardcore fans. So I think that's kind of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, but again, I think we have to look at the bigger picture and think like, where will we be in a year or 2 years?
Right.
And I'm really excited with Visions. Now I know Visions isn't canon. It starts next week, right? It starts this week.
Yeah, I think it's the 22nd, maybe. I think it's
Yeah, I think
a couple
because
days.
Disney
Yeah.
have said all of their releases now are going to be a Wednesday morning, or a Wednesday kind of wherever you are in the world, because of Loki. Loki's kind of figures were amazing, so they've said everything's going to be on
Okay.
a Wednesday. But that means it'll clash with What If for a couple of weeks, but so be it.
Well,
Wednesdays.
The thing with Visions is that they're releasing them all at once.
Okay.
So on Wednesday, you'll have, I think I read that it was like 2.5 hours of content. It's like 9 short stories. And I think they released it to like the people who are like early reviews and stuff. And I'm hearing only great things about it.
Do we know any characters that are going to be involved yet? Do we know? I know they're not canon, but I'm guessing it could be kind of in line with continuity rather than canon, or it'll use kind of characters we know. Do we know anything about that yet?
Yeah, so I believe that there's one called Tatooine Rhapsody, where there's this kid on Tatooine and he's in like a band, and I think that's the one where Boba Fett appears with his slave ship, like the Slave One, and
Boba Fett
I know
Starship.
Boba Fett's starship. Yeah, exactly. But I know there's like Inquisitors, there's like Time of the Empire. They're definitely going to reference stuff from continuity, even though it's not canon.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is there's one of the, I forget exactly, I think it might be called Ronin. It's about like the ancient Jedi and the ancient Sith. And it follows this one, I think it's a fallen Jedi, but they're actually making a novel to continue the story from the anime. So I'm definitely going to read that, although it's not canon, but it's a really cool opportunity to like, get people into anime or get anime people into Star Wars.
And I think as well, it gives a great opportunity to introduce potentially some new characters, even if they're not canon. It just because they're not canon now, it doesn't mean they won't be. It's a great way to like screen test some characters. But at the same time, it feels like I'll kind of judge this when I've seen it, and I will binge watch them all. But it feels like, imagine like Darth Revan in anime, like that,
right?
Like those characters. But I feel like it's a bit of an ace in the hole. Like Revan is like, Disney know what they're doing, Lucasfilm know what they're doing. They've made him canon. They're going to drip feed us, and then at some point we'll get something big.
Yeah, I'm hoping that like the success of Visions, I hope it is successful and like people like it, will lead to like canon anime that they could just make stories on, and I think that would be super cool.
So Darth Walker's asking, do you like anime? Now I know you're a big Last Airbender fan, but what are your kind of general anime thoughts?
Right. Yeah, so I am a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. I saw it when I was a kid, but only in the past like 6 months have I started actually watching anime. My friend Mark in the chat was the first one to convince me to watch it, and the first one I saw was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and it was like pretty similar to Avatar, but like they're using like alchemy to like create weapons and stuff like that. But it's like a super cool medium, and it took me a little bit to get used to the style. I don't know. Have you seen anime?
Uh, Not, I wouldn't say religiously. I have seen it and I've consumed it, but more kind of just in and out, more
Right.
in the moment rather than kind of being. I wouldn't say I'm particularly a fan. I wouldn't say I'm against it or I'm not a fan of it. Just something I've never kind of thrown myself into.
Right. So I just started watching. I finished Full Metal Alchemist, and then there was another anime that I was told to watch called Haiku, and it's a volleyball anime, and it's like a feel good show. Like I'll watch it before I go to bed, and I loved it. And I just finished watching my third anime, which was Demon Slayer, and it's like a super cool medium just because like there's so many different colors and there's the storytelling is incredible. You fall in love with characters, and I would say that I think Star Wars is perfect for that medium. They could do so many cool things. I mean, we saw from the previews that there's just so many cool looking things that there's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and I love like Quentin Tarantino stuff, especially like Kill Bill. Kill Bill is almost like live action anime, like the way, like the style of that. And you do think, you look at that and think that is made for, think of like Attack of the Clones
Right.
and Anakin tearing up Tusken Raiders. Imagine that in like an adult anime scene.
Yeah, it's I mean, because Star Wars is based off of samurai and heavily inspired by Japanese culture, and I'm surprised it's taken this long to actually get into anime.
Yeah, and do you know what? People say Disney's ruined Star Wars. Like, more to say, like, we wouldn't have half of the stuff we have, and we would have nothing of what we're getting if Disney hadn't acquired them.
I can't deal with the people who say that, because they'll say, "Oh my God, Disney ruined Star Wars," and then they'll love The Mandalorian. Like, you can't. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and they'll be like, well, you know, Grogu is just simply there to sell toys, but then at the same time they were like, we're not releasing any toys until after The Mandalorian airs because we don't want to ruin it. I know that was kind of Jon Favreau, but like he's part of it. He's such a big guy in there. So yeah, I'm really excited for, like, I mean, you know what, the next 10 years, these kids don't know, Connor. The kids don't know.
I know it was so long, but like there was. No, I agree. And the thing with Grogu is they could potentially. We have 900 years with Grogu. Yeah, exactly, like you could do anything in the future, and he'll be there.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Now they could literally they're like right 300 years later after and do you know how clever would that be? Because the big risk of jumping outside of the Skywalker saga is that they introduce us to characters that we're unfamiliar with. So everybody's a little bit turned off on day one. And I suppose the Mandalorian shows, actually, we don't need to worry about that, but they use some clever cameos especially in season 1. Well, in season 2 too, and kept us very familiar with Tatooine and stuff. But great way to say, right, okay, we're jumping forward 300 years, but you're getting Grandmaster Grogu. Of the kind of the new High Republic or whatever it is. So yeah, it's the future is bright. From everything we know, what are you most excited for?
See, the thing is, I think the answer is Kenobi for me, but like we know how hyped The Mandalorian was and how everybody was watching it. Like a lot of people, that was their first thing watching, was like introduction to Star Wars was The Mandalorian. But I think this Kenobi show might be like 2 or 3 times the excitement that like The Mandalorian got, just because everybody knows Obi-Wan Kenobi, everybody knows Darth Vader, everybody knows Tatooine, Luke Skywalker. Like it is like the pinnacle of Star Wars is like Obi-Wan, Darth Vader. Like everybody knows that, and I think they're eventually gonna have to duel, like Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. They're gonna they're gonna meet. You don't think? You don't.
No, I feel like everybody's jumped on the whole we meet again from like a New Hope, like last time we met and all that. But for me, that's the Mustafar scene. Like that's what that is.
Yeah.
And I'd rather see, especially because I've read some of the Vader comics, I've read some of the Star Wars kind of comics between A New Hope and the current run. I haven't got past Empire yet. But like just seeing kind of Vader's rage and how much he like, how under his skin, I'd rather him seeing kind of always just be like so close. And I know we're very likely getting the Inquisitors, and it's very likely the Inquisitors may encounter Kenobi, but maybe they just don't encounter him anymore because he wins and that's it. But I don't know. I don't feel like I need or want that. I don't know.
Right. But I also don't know how they would do it. Like, would Obi-Wan leave Tatooine? Why would he leave Tatooine if he's protecting Luke? Like, does Vader come to Tatooine? Like, I'm interested to see how they do it. I trust them. I do. I trust like Favreau and Filoni, like, and Kathleen Kennedy. Like, they know what they're doing, and they're really protective of their lore. And I think if they do that, I'll be happy. I would like to see that, but like you said, there could be some people who don't.
So I share that feeling. I think if they did it right, I'd be okay with it. But that's my concern, is that like, well, they don't do it right. And we're a bit like, but yeah, that for me would be the only way, is that they, for whatever reason, Kenobi leaves, but then what reason would he be justified to leave? I don't know. Like, maybe I'm overthinking it, and just enjoy it, and it's going to be awesome, because it was 4 parts. It's not like big.
I think it might be. It's 4 or 6. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, 4 or 6, but it's one off, isn't it? They're just kind of one series and done, which I think is the right thing to do. It'd be very easy to kind of almost do the 19 years in between, but not really a lot happens. We get that from kind of Kenobi's journal that Luke reads in the comic books. That all he ever does is kind of fights off pirates and Tusken Raiders and all that. But it's going to be awesome. And I'm so glad that they brought Hayden Christensen. Well, not so much that they brought him back, that he has chose to come back.
Yeah. Because
I feel like he's going to be redeemed. Like, I feel like all the people I hated him 20 years ago are going to be like, they're gone. They're not going to have an opinion anymore. And then people like yourself, who couldn't really remember him from back then and interact with him, are like, it's Hayden. We get to enjoy you.
That's the thing. I think the majority of voices now are in support of Hayden Christensen. Like, I don't see a lot of Hayden Christensen slander anymore.
No.
I think it's just, he's back. Like, I think he did the best that he could with what George Lucas wrote for him. George Lucas is not, his strength is not writing dialogue, but I love him. He seems like he is enjoying himself now that he's back. I've seen him at a couple like meet and greets, and he's taking pictures with people, and it looks like he's having a really good time. So it's just really like wholesome, and I'm happy to see him enjoy himself.
Yeah, do you know, it's painful when you watch like the behind the scenes stuff, because they'll do all of the scenes and it's very rigid, and the dialogue's kind of very wanting, is one way of putting it. But then they'll cut, and then Hayden Christensen just bursts into life as Hayden kind of behind, and you're like,
why can't we see that?
But I do hope, and I know everybody hopes this, but I hope we see some flashback General Skywalker stuff for him in the Clone Wars.
I want to see it. I want to see like a temple scene. That's what I want to see. I kind of want to see Anakin going through Order 66 during the temple and fighting like these Jedi, just like, or maybe he's having a nightmare about it. Like, maybe he's like kind of regretting it, something like that. I just want to see him in the temple going beast mode, basically.
100%. And even after that, so I believe it's canon that he catches up with Eth Koth, Jocasta Nu, and then there's like a bunch of Jedi who are like hiding out in a cave. To get that in live action, because that whole point in that time is he's pursuing Kenobi. He's not bothered about them as Jedi. He's like, where's Kenobi? And that then really ties into that narrative. That would be awesome to see.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if people, like, when you think of like the Kenobi show, you're like, oh my god, this is gonna be so awesome, but it's probably gonna be super sad, and like we're gonna see sad Obi-Wan struggling with what he's done, and what Vader's done and what the galaxy's become. It's probably going to be pretty sad.
It's like Rogue One, isn't it? Everybody's like, yeah, this is this great film, and like we all know those characters and what they're there to do, and you're like, yeah, they're not in A New Hope. Like,
they're gone.
we know kind of how that went. So, but yeah, the Kenobi series is going to be awesome. And then, do you know, I think because of that as well, and because of how they dropped it on us, I think the Book of Boba Fett's going to be awesome too. But nobody seems to like talk about it as much. And I think that's quite a good thing, especially when we're almost on the cusp of it.
Yeah, I think it's just because no one really knows what's going to happen. Like no one kind of like, I don't have an idea of like a plan that they would go through. Like, will we see Omega? Like, I don't know. It's something that's kind of up in the air, and it's like a gray area for at least like the criminal underworld. And it's like, what is going to happen? I have no idea. But that's super exciting.
Do you think we'll get that Cad Bane scene as a flashback, maybe?
Yeah, well, they might do that as a flashback. Because in the Bad Batch, he has that metal plate on his head, so I think that's kind of a nod to the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
Like when he takes off his hat, he's got like a little thing on his head, and there's like a plate. So I'm pretty sure they're referencing that. If we see it, great. But in my head, it's happened. But yeah.
What were your thoughts on the Bad Batch as a series?
I liked it, and I like it even more now that I know there's like a season 2, because like week to week, it was tough going through some of those episodes. That's just, oh, let's do a mission and then let's go back to Sid. Like obviously, like there's character development there. It's in small parts, but when you don't know if there's another season, you're like, okay, what is this going? Like, what are we leading up to? But the positives were like, I loved Crosshair. He's become one of my favorite clones. And
the fact as well, I mean, we don't know for sure, but we have his word on it that he's there out of choice. Everybody's kind of hoping he's going to be redeemed. And
right.
He's like, nah, this is where I belong. This is who I am.
They just left him on the pad. Who knows? Like, all right, Crosshair, like you're just like, how are you going to get out of there? But his character is super cool as like an antagonist, because he's not like a villain, because we know that we thought that he was like under the control of the mind chip, but it's kind of like a gray area. And I think that makes for a great story, like an understandable villain. And like in those last couple episodes, he had these lines where he's like, oh, like I'm going to give you something that you never gave me, like a chance. It's a bunch of different things that lead up to his mindset, and you see it's still twisted, but you can understand where he's coming from. And I think that makes a perfect villain.
Well, it's almost like he's as much trying to change them as they are trying to change his mind. And I love that, because it's like he still recognizes that they're all brothers, and it pains him kind of what they did to him.
Right.
But yeah, and I'm so glad they kind of didn't end him, and he would have been, or even I'm glad they didn't bring him back. I thought he was gone. I thought that's what was going to happen. He was going to die. They were going to move on. I never thought they were going to redeem him, and I kind of would have probably preferred he died than they redeemed him. I'm kind of where he was, but the way they left it was like, right, okay, that was pretty cool. But yeah, I totally take your point. There was a lot of filler episodes, and I think I said this in one of your in one of your videos. It's not just that there were filler episodes. The filler episodes were at the wrong time. Like we picked up the arc with the whole the Ryloth arc, and we're like, right, here we go. We're into the deep stuff now. We're in the end game. And then you come back and there's the whole heist on Sid's own, like,
yeah. It's just like that is the frustrating part. Like I would be okay with like they have a couple of those episodes in like the middle of the show, like things kind of, there's a little lull. They're kind of getting their feet as being mercenaries, and then it starts to pick up towards the end. That's what I think would be the best. And you just still do the world building with like the criminal underworld and like those crime syndicates that'll probably be referenced in the second season. But yeah, I agree. There's like a super exciting episode and then mission, but I think they missed that opportunity. But I still really enjoyed the show overall. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think overall, and I think kind of what we got from it, I enjoyed it. I certainly more enjoyed it than I didn't. I'm glad we got it. I think it probably could have been 4 episodes shorter as a series, and by doing that, we would have been a little bit more punchy. I think looking back, it was a little bit too much like the Clone Wars rather than Rebels. And I feel like because of the whole essentially family living on a ship, what Rebels did really well, it would break the characters off into smaller groups.
Right.
And it would give you great character development between those 2 characters. But with the Bad Batch, they kept them all together all of the time. Hunter and Wrecker stole the show with the Mega, and we got nothing of Echo and Tech, really.
Yeah, I also agree that, because I love Tech. Tech is one of my guys, and he got nothing. It was frustrating because he was just basically like a means to an end. Like, oh, Tech, open the door so we can propel these other characters to get development. Like, that's frustrating, and I hope they address it in the second season, and kind of do what you said and break it off and break them off in the different, arcs. But like, and also Echo too. Like, he had his whole arc with the Bad Batch in the Clone Wars season 7. We didn't really get that much payoff with that, and especially the episode with the Separatists when they have to go rescue the Separatists. I think they could have just pounded that narrative even more. It was only like a couple lines, and I think I didn't feel the payoff of like, oh, Echo's coming around to accepting that like there's no Separatists anymore. It's everybody versus the Empire. But yeah, exactly.
There was a whole kind of like PTSD storyline they could have put there, him totally not getting it. Yeah, it was a strange one.
It's a tough task. It's a tough task just because there's 5 of these clones all together, and then Omega. It's tough.
And I am interested to see what they do with Omega, and will we get her in Book of Boba Fett? And I feel it's inevitable that we'll get that confrontation at some point between the 2, and who knows? But we'll kind of see. But then we've got what we got after that. Then we'd have the Mandalorian season 3. What are your kind of hopes and expectations from that?
I'm hoping that we go to Mandalore. I hope most of the season is on Mandalore, just the whole conflict, because we don't know that much. We don't know that much about Mandalore in canon, honestly. Like, we've got the Clone Wars, but after that, it's apparently like the planet was bombed by the Empire, and it's like all iced now, like they said in the season. So I'm hoping we see the conflict between Bo-Katan and Mando resolved. I think there's a real opportunity there to just get some really cool character development from Din. He's away from Grogu now, so he's not the dead anymore. He's his own person that makes decisions for himself and not for Grogu. So I think there's some really cool opportunities there.
No, I agree. And I think what they've done very well in season 2, and they haven't fully committed to it, but if they wanted to, Bo-Katan could absolutely become the antagonist in that story. Like, they've made her like a little bit bitchy, and even like her little crew, they've made them kind of like a little bit antagonistic. And then we've got the Darksaber as the catalyst. So it'd be cool to kind of see that. But yeah, I'm interested. And I agree. Like, I love Mandalore, and they always feel like in addition to somebody else's story, like the Clone Wars, Rebels. But it'd be great to give them and Mandalorian lore its own narrative.
Yeah, because there's so much Mandalorian lore and legends. I don't know a lot of it, but like there's just comics and a bunch of other things that are like super cool. Like, the Mandalorian culture is super cool, that I think they could deep dive and explore how it's kind of changed since Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars. Like, how does she feel about what she did before? And there's just so many opportunities with that.
And you talk about legends, but that's where it all starts then getting a bit dicey, doesn't it? Especially when people talk about like Boba Fett and Jango Fett, because if you go into legends, are they Mandalorian? Then there's kind of different stories, and people, like, I've seen it through the Lego stuff. People are like, well, you'll do like I'll show all of my Mandalorian figs, but I'll never show Boba Fett. And they're like,
Right.
but Boba's a Mandalorian. I'm like, well, he's not really, because Django was a foundling, but he never took the creed, so that doesn't kind of pass on. And then it's great for engagement in TikTok. But
Oh yeah. Just get people bickering in the comments.
yeah, but yeah, I've never kind of delved much into Legends. I've more observed it. But how deep have you gone on it?
I haven't gone too deep. My favorite Legends, I've read the Darth Bane trilogy, which is some of my favorite Star Wars content, just period. It's like super dark and super interesting to see how, because Darth Bane was the one who created the rule of two, and you see how the Sith go from like thousands of warriors to just him, and it's really cool to see like his mindset and why he thinks that the Sith should be two, and it's Game of Thrones Mandalore style. That would be awesome. I would love that. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I've read the Darth Bane trilogy and also the Darth Plagueis book. They're really good. They're really good reads.
Have you done Thrawn?
I've read the canon, the first. I'm halfway through the second canon Thrawn book. I didn't do the Dark Empire or Heir to the Empire, I think it's called. I haven't read that.
He's such a good character. I'm looking forward to seeing him in live action.
Yeah.
But again, that's somebody I would absolutely. So, are you reading the Thrawn books? Or are you audio booking the Thrawn books?
So I'm audio booking the Thrawn books right now. I have a Kindle that I've been starting to read like the High Republic books on, just because I can get through a book quicker if I sit down and read it than if I'm like stopping here and listening to it. But then I have to go back because I forgot. I wasn't paying attention. Like there's a bunch of things with audiobooks that can be frustrating. So like if I read it, sit down, and I'll like really process it. But I've been audiobooking the Thrawns, but I've been reading the High Republics because I'm super into the High Republic. Yeah.
And how are you? So if you're using your Kindle, because I haven't got into the High Republic yet, but I'm kind of going to let them play out and potentially catch up later. But do you buy the books themselves, or are you using? Because I know there's like the Marvel Unlimited app, which Henry and I have talked about a little bit on here, which is great, but it's a little bit out of date. It takes a little while to kind of back up. What are you? Because it's quite a common asked question. Is like, how do people source their comic books? So if you're using your Kindle, what's the process there?
Yeah, so for the Kindle, you just buy it off the Amazon store. It's like an ebook, and you can highlight stuff on the Kindle. You can like take notes on it. So I've been starting to do that with like lore. So if I'm reading something and I'm like, oh, I can make a video about this, highlight, write a little note, and then keep going from there. But with the audiobooks, it's not the same because you can't like stop it and be like, hey, let me write this down. So I prefer to make videos with like sections of books that I've highlighted. It's a lot easier to keep track on what's going on.
Yeah, and imagine I suppose once you start reading so much, you kind of forgot what you've read, or you start getting things mixed up. But with the audiobooks, are there any notable readers of those books?
So I use Audible whenever I buy audiobooks. I know like I've gotten like MP4 copies of basically, I guess they're illegal copies, but I've like found like copies you can download and put into like an app, like a book. I think it's called Book Reader or something like that. But you can't like highlight or like take notes or anything. Like, it's just like a MP3 file that you listen to. But I would say Audible is the go-to.
But when people are reading the books, like almost like the voice author, who is?
Oh, okay.
Are there any kind of notable voice authors on there?
Yeah, so I think now Mark Thompson is doing a lot of these books, and you start to recognize. Oh yeah, Ashley Eckstein did a great job of reading the Ahsoka novel. Who's actually the voice of Ahsoka? So you're listening to it and you're like, oh my god, it's actually Ahsoka like narrating her own story. But it's cool because the audiobooks have like sound effects and they have music, and like it's basically like listening to a movie. So I've listened to other audiobooks and it's just like people reading, but Star Wars, you're like engaged. There's blaster fire, there's lightsabers clashing. Like it's a really cool thing to do.
I need to do this. I need to get on it.
Yeah.
It's the time is now to do that. Yeah, do you know, I love books, but I'm my own worst enemy. And I know things like Harry Potter. I've read a couple of the Harry Potter books, but they're like take so long.
Yeah.
But then like Stephen Fry, if you know who Stephen Fry is, he's like the most British man ever. I think he narrated all of them. So like just put them on and sit and listen to it. It's
yeah, just
can only be a good thing.
Put it in the background. It's kind of relaxing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I did want to, I said this in the comment to this video, and I wanted to discuss it with you now because I have such strong feelings on this, but Chirrut Imwe. So about, they're like, I'm one with the Force and the Force with me. And they're basically, for anybody who hasn't seen that video of Connor's, the question you asked is Chirrut kind of Force sensitive? And I suppose I'll ask you now, like to kind of reaccount that, but you know, what were your thoughts and feelings on that?
Yeah, so do I think he's Force sensitive? It's still like a gray area. I say like yes, like super tiny bit of Force sensitivity, just in the fact that he's like been around like all that kyber crystal and like he studies the Force to no end, like. And the fact that when he like is just walking, the blaster bolts miss. I don't know if maybe it's not he's sensitive to the Force. Maybe the Force is just he's like a beacon for whatever the Force wills. It's really interesting because he's like involved in like protecting the temple and kyber crystals and all that, but he's can't use the Force. But he's also blind and can like fight people. Like he fights stormtroopers while he's blind. Like it's tough because like you're like, okay, this guy's definitely using the Force, but we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the blind thing, I suppose there is narrative outside of Star Wars around that. I mean, if you look into Marvel, we've got Daredevil, obviously slightly different situation there. But, you know, we've seen that a lot through kind of ninja films going back, especially when you talk about that kind of Japanese culture kind of coming through on TikTok. But so my thoughts on it, because I always look at kind of what's the lesson here, like what is it telling us about kind of life beyond Star Wars, and we can do it ourselves. But with Chirrut, I think it's that thing whereby is he Force sensitive? The reality is we don't know. Like there's no collection of that. But it's about faith, and whatever your faith is, and it doesn't have to be necessarily about religious faith. It can be just kind of that like mindset and attitude. If you're somebody who's very negative and like, nah, and you know, like I'm not interested in what you've got to say. I don't want to take your survey. I don't want to sign up for this. I don't want to you're never going to like, you'll never kind of learn anything new. You'll never kind of have those opportunities. And with Chirrut, he has that kind of opportunity. Like you miss all of the shots you don't take, essentially. And whether he's touched by the Force or not, or whether he's Force sensitive, whether the Force kind of interplayed, because again, we don't know that, he would never have did what he did if he didn't kind of make that leap forward. And I like, for me, I look at that and it's that positive mindset pushing forward to say, you miss all the shots you don't take. And he believed, and obviously the Force does exist in the Star Wars universe, so the Force may have intervened, and we don't know that. And if it was going to intervene for anyone, it was him, because he was basically like a disciple of the Force rather than a practitioner of it. But I love Chirrut, and I love Rogue One, and it's one of those few moments like it tears me up, and I'm not ashamed to see that, because it's just
every time.
As we said, it's like we knew what was going to happen to those guys as soon as they landed on Scarif. They weren't getting out. But yeah, I love that one, and I remember kind of feeling that when you were talking about that. And
that was. You're right. It's like he manifests the Force in different ways, and the Force rewards him for his faith. And
So yeah, it's. I mean, that's a really good way of looking at it. It rewards him, and that's what we don't understand, though, because yes, we know what the Force can do in that regard. But we'll take some questions because they're starting to come in. But like thoughts on the Bendu? I know you've had some TikToks on the Bendu, but what are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, for me, the Bendu still kind of like puts my mind in a pretzel, just because he's like an otherworldly being that lives for thousands of years and just kind of like goes with the flow of the force. So like the force goes from light to dark, it always balances itself out. He's kind of just like riding the wave, is the way I think it was Element who really helped me understand it. Just he's riding that wave of wherever the force goes. He's not using the light and the dark side. He's just kind of on a scale of like, okay, I'm I'm a little more dark here, but now like in a couple thousand years, I'll be a little more light. That's the way that I process it. We still don't really know a lot about him, but he's a super cool character that is something I think Star Wars needs more of, is like third-party Force users, not just Jedi and Sith, and like third-party Force cultures. There's a bunch in the comics of like societies that like reject the Force, and there's the Bendu is somebody that I think we could expand on, and is really important to the Star Wars universe to kind of understand the way that the Force works.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope that, because Rebels has probably never been more popular than it has been over the last 12 months, and it didn't do great. It did well to get as many series as it did back when it did, because it wasn't as kind of hot back then. But I hope they recognize that it is doing great.
Yeah.
And people want more from it. And the Bendu is something, because I know like the whole Grey Jedi thing, like people jump on the whole the Bendu, and you're like, no.
Yeah. My account kind of blew up all over a video on Grey Jedi that was just kind of like they're like, oh, this person's a Grey Jedi, this person's a Grey Jedi. But like the thing with the Force is that you can't like just use the dark side a little bit. It's kind of like a drug where you get addicted, and it's just that power that you feel, and it keeps drawing you towards it. And if you like fall to the dark side but then come back to the light, it doesn't make you a Grey Jedi. It just means that you're using the light side again. But if you keep using the dark side, you'll fall again. That's the way that it goes. I think people it's a cool term to throw out, like, oh, I'm gonna use lightning here and I'm gonna heal you here. Like it's a cool concept, but it's just like not really practical in the lore right now.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if George Lucas has kind of spoke much about it, but it totally goes against like his idea, and I think that's what people think, is like they forget that Legends comes from an era when he was like, look, you can go and write about, like, you've got the license to it, but I don't consider it to be kind of factual to my universe. And then people are like, oh well, you know, it's really cool, and you're like, yeah, well, yeah. Of course it is. It's kind of it's totally made up. It's a made up world within a made up universe.
Yeah, I think he described it as like like a parallel universe almost. Like yeah, so I think people need to realize that it was never canon, but it's still cool, and they're bringing stuff over from Legends into canon now. So
I just hope they don't do that, because they do exist in Legends, don't they?
That's the thing. It's almost like a Wikipedia term. And I know in video games, I don't even know if the word Grey Jedi shows up in any like content ever, but it's almost like a fan made term that from video games where like you could use lightning here and also heal. But it's never really, I don't know if I have never seen it in like a book or anything like Lucasfilm.
No, I doubt it's ever been in a Lucasfilm thing, but yeah, hopefully they don't go down that route. I don't think they need to, do they? They don't need to do it. It
just defeats the purpose of almost every single person that's like fallen to the dark side.
If we said the words there, a what if, I mean, the What If series, you've been watching it, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done some videos on it. I mean, it's brilliant in my opinion. I think Marvel are absolutely killing it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what would be your what if moment from the Star Wars universe?
I would say the one that I think is the most intriguing is like, what if Leia was on Tatooine and Luke was with Bail Organa? I think that is super cool, because that means Leia would get trained by Yoda, and like there's a story in the what if, or not the what if, from a certain point of view that I have in the back where it's between Yoda and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's a Force ghost and Yoda's on Dagobah, and he comes and he's like, all right, I'm bringing you like I'm bringing you the Skywalker kid. And he's like, okay, I can't wait to meet her and train her. And he's like, no, I'm bringing you Luke. And he's like, why are you bringing me Luke? He's like whiny, like crybaby. Basically he's like, he's a crybaby. He's not going to like, I want to train Leia. And he's like, no, like this is what it has to be. But I think Leia would have been like the best Jedi just because of her temperament and how she doesn't really take any like bullshit. I think Jedi Leia would be my favorite if they ever expanded upon it.
Yeah, that would have been cool. And I think, did Choco do an ad? Was it Choco Element who did a video on that a couple of days ago where he was asked like, what if they'd been the other way around? And
yeah,
I've never really considered it. Like, what of all the things, and it's so obvious because that could have very easily happened. Like if Bail Organa was like, yeah, my wife and I have always talked about adopting a son rather than a daughter. Like that would have been it. But yeah, that would have been cool. And I think Leia would have rose above because she was just so strong-minded and strong-willed from such an early age.
Right. And that's one of the things that I loved about The Rise of Skywalker was the fact that they brought her into they made her a Jedi.
Yeah.
And that scene is so beautiful when they're training, when they're fighting, when Leia's training with Luke. It's beautiful.
I'm just seeing if there's any in the comments. So mine would be people always say like, what happens? What if Luke had turned to the dark side at the end of Return of the Jedi? And I know it was probably toyed around. I think a lot is made of it, and a lot more is made of it than was ever really going to happen.
Right.
But I feel like that was never realistically going to happen. Like we were very much on a clear path there to Luke redeeming or winning, coming out as the kind of the great good in that. But my what if is, and nobody ever talks about this, what if at the end of Empire Strikes Back, R2 had not fixed the hyperdrive? Because Vader was like that close. And that is when Luke is at his most vulnerable. I feel like by the time they come together on the Death Star in Jedi, Luke is comfortable. He's made his peace that Vader was once Anakin Skywalker. He says it himself. Whatever will be, will be. He's ready to kind of lay down his own life rather than kind of get into all of that. But I just think at the end of Empire, he even calls him father. He's just chopped off his hand. He's laid in bed. And I just think, imagine that was when he was at his most vulnerable. They got the tractor beam on them. They pulled them in. He'd been presented to the Empire. He'd been kept away from his friends. He was not strong enough in the Force. He was not strong enough of a fighter. Like, how good would that what if have been?
That would have been incredible. Like Vader almost like forces him to train in the dark side. Like it's maybe he secretly trains him. I don't know, because he wants to take over Sidious's role. Like he said, we can defeat the Emperor. And maybe he would accept him. Like it's like, okay, this is actually my father. He wants me. Like I want to belong somewhere. He's never really.
Yeah.
He's kind of just floating around.
And that's so true because of how quick he accepts that and calls him father. Like he literally just chopped his arm off, and then he does that. But yeah, that would have been awesome for me.
Yeah.
And like do you know, like I know for someone like yourself probably, and people always say you watch Revenge of the Sith. When you watch Revenge of the Sith, you just hope, you know what's going to happen, but you hope he's not going to do it. For me, when I watch Empire, that's what I hope is just not going to happen. That R2 just doesn't fix that hyperdrive.
Yeah, that makes such an interesting what if.
Yeah, awesome. I need to go and watch Empire after this and hope that doesn't happen.
Exactly. I think they could do a what if show. I think maybe 100%. People would get. The only thing I fear is like people would get toxic in the fact that they're like, oh, this is what should have happened. Like, yeah, I prefer this way better. But
yeah, that's a good point. And although Marvel has its toxic fans, nothing like Star Wars.
Yeah, so, it's just because the MCU is way newer than Star Wars, so it's like these toxic MCU people are don't have like 40 years of content to look back on, other than the comics. But like, I'm mostly talking about the MCU because that's what I watch.
What if the younglings kill Anakin? Now, like, that would have been funny, but I would, going back to the point earlier on Kenobi and the Vader thing, that would be in what you were saying about the temple and more dueling with the Jedi, to see him having flashbacks of that and maybe showing us a little bit more of him with the younglings. That would be really cool to kind, because that's going to feed his anger and just his raw emotion.
Yeah.
But I'm so excited. It's going to be the future of Star Wars is bright, and people just need to enjoy it.
Yeah, try not to think about it too much and try not to be too negative. Just enjoy the content that we're getting from both Marvel and Star Wars. Like, there's something to watch every week, and it's unprecedented, honestly.
That is, I'll do this as the last one, and I know it's Obi-Wan now, but that, I suppose we got a little bit of that, didn't we? Is it the Rise of Skywalker? I'm sorry, Revenge of the Sith game,
yeah,
which you played. It plays that out, right?
Yeah, so it's like a bonus mission at the end. Once you complete the game, you get like a couple missions that are just like extra, and the one is you're playing as Anakin when you're fighting Obi-Wan, and you beat him, and then he does like a flip. They play the scene. He's like, "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." Then Anakin actually flips over him and stabs him, and takes his lightsaber and just like kicks him into the lava, and then he goes like on the ship to Palpatine, and he's like, "You did well, Lord Vader." And then Anakin, Palpatine gives Anakin his Darth Vader red lightsaber, and then Anakin throws it up, does like a bunch of spins, and then he stabs Palpatine, and then all the clones are like, "What the heck?" And then that's how it ends. It was so like dramatic. It was so like over dramatic, and it's would never happen in a million years, but it was so funny to watch.
I feel like it was a great era for games then, because they were overly dramatic. Like, I was talking to someone the other week, I can't remember exactly who it was, but we were talking about like I love a good like beat 'em up game, and you don't really get them anymore. But there was a point where the benchmark for beat 'em up games were like the WWE games, like SmackDown versus Raw, or SmackDown Feel the Pain, and the story mode in them was so dramatic. It was brilliant, and it was probably about the same era. But yeah, I don't know if I played the Revenge of the Sith game, but I've certainly seen that cutscene on probably on a TikTok, and it's an awesome what if in that respect. I have two Jedi kind of questions for you. Like, that, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I'm kind of going to put you on the spot to see if you know the answers to these. So at the end of Return of the Jedi, kind of bit what we touched on there, when they bring Luke to the Emperor, and the idea is that they kind of train him together. Is it there that Sidious is kind of thinking the rule of two can come to an end now, or is it that he saw Luke as a host for him?
That's the thing. I think the way I look at it is, since the Rise of Skywalker, when Luke goes to like strike down Palpatine and Vader like stops him, I think Palpatine was ready to just like do the same thing with Rey, like definitely like take over his body and become basically immortal. If you like keep doing that, if you keep transferring your essence, like I think that's what his plan was. Now that we've seen the Rise of Skywalker, and it adds more to Vader. Even he saves Luke from Palpatine. Because why else? Because why else would Palpatine say strike me? Like, why else would he tell him to strike him down? Like, Palpatine's only in it for himself. He wouldn't want to die, you know.
So but prior to all of the recent stuff, even like when it was then, I always looked at that as, because he knew Vader would protect him. He knew Vader was there, and it was about triggering Luke's anger, because he knew he would have to tap into that anger to do it. But the question that I have kind of leads onto that is, if that was about transferring his essence, why didn't he do that anyway? Because he transferred his essence from there to Exegol, so he can travel over distance. So when he kind of dropped down that generator shaft, why didn't he come back up and possess Luke then?
I think so, from what we know in Legends, because this happens in the Darth Bane trilogy, that you like have to dominate somebody's mind kind of to take over. And like in the, actually, I don't know if I want to spoil it, but like he tries to do that, and you have to like dominate someone's mind, and it's like one of the hardest things to do. So I think it's way easier for him to just go into that like Strandcast body. He doesn't have to really do anything, because it's like, no, he's not like a Force user. It's not Luke Skywalker who you have to dominate. It's just, okay, I lost. Yeah. It's like, I lost, the Empire lost, and then we go into like he basically takes down the entire Empire. I forget what, I'm forgetting the name of the, he basically like destroys the Empire. He's like, I died, you guys need to die too. Like the Empire like starts bombing into
Operation Cinder.
Yes, Operation Cinder. That's the name. Yeah. So like he sits back and tries to reanalyze what's going to happen for the next 30 years on Exegol, like trying to figure out how to clone all this stuff while the Empire is destroying itself. And I think that's one of the most Palpatine things to do, because he's just in it for himself and trying to find the best way possible to rule the galaxy. And he's like, oh, you guys failed me, so you have to die too.
Yeah. No, I do like that. I do like the Operation Cinder story arc, and I think it plays very well into him. The other question I had, totally unrelated to all that, but we see in The Mandalorian, when obviously he's a bounty hunter chasing Grogu initially, and then others are chasing Grogu. How do those trackers work? Like, how do they know who they're looking for?
I don't know. I don't know if it's like programmed into the tracker. Like I don't know how they would. That's actually a really good question. I don't know how they would find the beacon. Like, I don't know how, like, how do they know where they are? That's actually a good question.
Yeah. Other than if you had like a chip, like or a GPS dot or something on that stretched light years, you just wouldn't know. And I always find it really funny that they have like the tracker is like that big. It's literally handheld, and it's like the dot is in the front. And you're like, well, where do I drop out of hyperspace? Because I could drop out in, like, the range on this thing is literally either right in front of me or the other end of the galaxy. And I've always wondered that, because I just think, like, if it was you, how do you get it off you? Like, at what point do you?
No, you're absolutely right. I have actually never really thought of that, but
well, there's your next video.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's an explanation. Maybe there isn't, but that's a great question.
Well, although I don't have an answer, I do feel better that I'm not alone, that I've totally missed something there.
Yeah, no, you haven't missed anything. Maybe we both missed something, but I don't know.
Yeah. Favreau, Filoni, we need an answer on that.
Get on it.
We need an answer. Look into the future, Connor. Obviously, you've had a very busy summer. You recently graduated college, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
You have an amazing following, and rightly so, on TikTok. You have a growing presence on Instagram. What is the future of kind of Jedi Connor? Because I know you changed the name from just your name, Connor Fahie, to Jedi Connor, with the view of kind of expanding. What does the future hold for you?
The future right now will be YouTube. Nice. I'm going to start making like exclusive videos, exclusive shorts on my YouTube page, and I'm in the works of maybe even doing a podcast. I've been writing some ideas down, and I think that's where the future for Jedi Connor goes. Still everyday TikTok videos, but kind of making a community on TikTok where we can just kind of, on YouTube where we just sit down and talk about stuff more in depth. That is where my focus would be in the future.
Nice. I'm excited to see that. Are you already sharing your TikToks to shorts?
I have shared a couple of them, but I think I'm going to do a different format where it's just like a voiceover with like pictures kind of explaining the lore. Like, I haven't really had much success on YouTube shorts so far, but I'm thinking of, if I make exclusive shorts, that'll drive, more people would want to see more videos on that.
I would just, in the meantime, because I totally get where you're coming from, and my experience would be is I kind of almost gave up on YouTube because of like that extra effort. It's like I'm spreading myself far too thin.
Yeah.
And then I was speaking to another he's a Lego YouTuber, and he has a presence on TikTok. But he was saying just pile it on, like every little helps. And what I found now is, as I kind of have a different following on each platform. So there are people who only follow me on YouTube now. There are people who only follow me on Instagram. And if we did it as a Venn diagram, there'd probably be a very small crossover of those who kind of follow across all three. So yeah, I would say get after it. And I think your videos like lend themselves to all. So biggest tip would be screen record, especially for Instagram. Before you post, screen record so you get it without the watermark. Because Instagram don't like that.
Yeah.
But get them on Reels, get them on Shorts, get them on TikToks, and kind of get yourself out there, because you have a great message, a great voice, and TikTok shows what you've, like, people want to hear, and they, more importantly, they want to interact with you. Like, your comments are always flooded with more questions, whether it's related or not related. The problem is like spreading yourself too thin, isn't it? But I think the one thing that TikTok is great for especially for you, is it has that reply with a video function. The others don't have that, so it's just that kind of, it allows itself to do that. But I'm excited by you getting on YouTube. I feel like you have you, as you said earlier, you watch people like Star Wars Theory, Dark Chocolate Element, all very well established on here. So you can really kind of put yourself in that mix and kind of let your own voice be heard. What sort of timelines are we looking at this?
So I'm going to start drafting YouTube videos this week.
Nice.
I'm thinking of, I'm just going to go head on, just throw myself into it. Just learn on the fly. That's the best way to do it at this point. Yeah, I'm excited to do it.
Totally agree, actually, because it's so easy to overthink YouTube videos and to run away with them. And one thing that Star Wars Theory does so well is, rather than creating a video, he just does a lot of live streams. So he'd be like, I want to talk about something, rather than create a video, which then you're conscious of editing and you're conscious of this. He'll just go live for an hour on YouTube.
Yeah.
And people interact with him, and he kind of shares his screen, and it works so well. So I keep saying I'm going to do that, but I never do it as well. So,
you'll get there. We'll all get there.
We will indeed. But now, man, I'm really excited for kind of what you have to bring, and I'll certainly be one to follow you. I think I already subscribe. I think I've subscribed to your YouTube for months now.
I appreciate it.
When's it coming, Connor? When's it coming? But for everybody else, if you're not already following Connor across his various social medias, the Jedi Connor handle, as you can see there, is his handle on TikTok. But all of your, what do you use? It's not Linktree, or it's kind of one of those. Which one do you use?
Yeah, it's like solo.to, I believe. It's link in bio.
There you go. Yeah, link in bio. Find all of Connor's stuff in that link in the description below. So definitely recommend checking them out. But what I would even more so recommend is, if you have any questions, get them into his TikTok comments, and you might just see your question answered as well.
Absolutely.
But do you know, Connor, as well, not just that, I love your videos, but I also love leaving a comment, because your comments, like, people, like, the interactions I have with people in your comments are so good. You've built a great community there.
Yeah, the people in the Star Wars community, especially the ones that have supported me and interacted with me, it's just a really, like, good feeling that we have, that people who are like-minded, who enjoy Star Wars. It's really cool to just talk about stuff, and we're hoping that we can take over YouTube, take over the non-toxic side of YouTube. Element and Darth Chaco and you guys are all killing it right now, so I'm hoping to hop on board and bring the non-toxic fans to YouTube.
Yeah, man. We'll do it. We don't even have to take over. We just have to build ourselves a nice little cool little corner.
Yep.
Where we can all just play nice with each other and more importantly, learn from each other, both about kind of Star Wars content, but then, when we talk about politics and kind of mindset and all that, that's where, like, for me, it all gets really interesting and really cool. But that is, if in normal times and over the last 7 episodes, Brixton would be kind of hammering on, saying we're running it in the last 5 minutes, but unfortunately, he's no longer with us as part of the podcast. So we'll kind of start to wrap up. But Connor, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here. Any closing thoughts, questions, like kind of anything you want to throw out there?
I would just say, try not to be toxic. My biggest thing is it doesn't matter what your opinions are as long as you discuss them without being toxic. Don't be a jerk. That's basically my mantra. Don't be a jerk. It doesn't matter what you like and what you don't like. Just don't bring other people down and enjoy yourself, because that's what all this fictional universe stuff is. You're supposed to enjoy yourself. You're not supposed to talk down on somebody. Imagine a 10-year-old says, "Oh my God, I love Rey Skywalker." And you're like, she's not a Skywalker. Like, you would never do that in real life. So don't do it on the internet either.
Yeah, I totally second that. I think my thoughts on that is like, there is nothing wrong with your opinions. And I'm always keen to hear people's opinions, because ultimately that's how we learn and grow as people. If you, regardless of your age, if your opinions are fact to you and whatever anybody else says is wrong, you've peaked in life.
Yeah.
Like you will never learn and know anything more than you do today. But actually, if you're like, right, okay, I don't agree with you, but let me understand why you feel that way, you might just kind of change your dial 1%, but you've grown by 1%. So
yeah, everyone has a different outlook on life. So the more outlooks you hear, maybe you don't agree with, but you hear, you'll have a broader perspective of the world and of life and everything that goes into it.
100%. And do you know what? If nothing else, that old adage, know thy enemy. So if you don't agree with them, at least by understanding how they think and why they think the way they do, it really just gives you a whole other perspective on those people. And if you want to take them down, the internet is full of people taking people down. So if you want to take them down by understanding their thinking, it's a great way of taking people down as well, because they won't be thinking how you're thinking. So,
right,
if nothing else, but that probably wasn't as positive as it came across. But yeah, it's just, even with the kind of the people that you don't like, there's no need, if by understanding them, maybe, one, change yourself, but that's how you would kind of change their thinking as well, if you wanted to. But now, Connor, it has been an absolute pleasure. You are, as I say, you were one of the people that I wanted to do this for, because I feel like TikTok wouldn't let me talk to you, because like Star Wars isn't Lego is my content, not Star Wars and all that. So I'm so happy to have had you here, and I'm sure whether kind of here, whether on your thing, or whether we kind of catch up on other people's things, we'll continue to talk so much kind of over for however long the internet allows us to do this.
Right. Absolutely. So, no, it's been a pleasure. And you're killing it. You're a beacon of light in the TikTok community and Lego Star Wars TikTok community. And just keep killing it, because you deserve it.
Thanks, man. Do you know what? I'm just enjoying it. And I think that's the big thing, is just enjoying making content, building a community, having a cool community. Like, I've kind of had them very small growth goals right now, of like just to get to that 10K on Instagram, because it's staring me in the face. Get to that 1K subs on here. But other like TikTok and stuff, I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered about that growth. It's just enjoy the process. And I feel like, when you enjoy the process, the growth comes with it, because it's all very natural in that. But speaking of that beacon of light, I'm going to have to take Brixton's mantle back off him. This is when he would usually do the plugs. But speaking of beacon of light, we've got the beacons of light behind me, which are the LED kits. Gone are the days of Game of Bricks. We are now affiliated with Lee Light Go. All those, their link is in the bio below. You can get, with the code Opie, you can get 20% off and free delivery. So I've one-upped them, Brixton, if you're watching, I've one-upped you on that one. But yeah, I used like go for my Stormtrooper and Vader helmet. I just haven't plugged my Vader helmet in, and I'm going to order some more. As always, for all of the cases and stands that I use, I've got Wicked Break, 5% off for any new users. Somebody recently used that as well, so thank you to you, because I saw that as a referral. And then I'm not wearing it tonight, but my Marvel caps, which are here, which I'm going to do a giveaway on very soon, officially licensed Marvel caps from Essential Caps UK. Sorry, Connor, it's UK only. But again, using code Opie, they're given 35% off. Like, I couldn't believe it when they said they're upping my code to 35% off.
That's a lot.
So you're talking like an officially licensed Disney or Marvel cap for like less than £10, like what, $15?
That's a bargain.
With that.
Yeah,
it is. It is indeed. It is indeed. But yeah, that is a wrap for us. But thank you to everybody who's joined the show tonight. Thank you for your interactions. Thank you for throwing questions. That is Connor's baby. That is his comfort zone.
Yep.
So Connor, but from me, it has been long overdue. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for giving up your Sunday afternoon, even though you're a little bit hungover and consuming water. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Have a pleasant rest of your Sunday evening, whatever you're doing, or Sunday afternoon, wherever you may be. See, episode 9 is already up. So set that reminder for episode 9 next week. It will be the last one for a couple of weeks because I'm going to Ibiza. So, like, I know I've only mentioned that like 100 times.
Nice.
Yeah, man. I'm so hyped for this. And obviously, if you're not already, sub to the channel, check out Instagram and TikTok, and check out that way Connor in the link tree below. But thank you, everyone. Bye. Say goodbye,
Thank
Connor.
you. Thank you, guys. See ya.
Thank you. And